with the Alfred administration, later completely exonerated, which is a ridiculous story for another time. My romantic vision of academia died, and it only took about a semester. I spent a semester in Washington, D.C. at American University, and I remember taking this Russian history class. The teacher couldn't resist incorporating Michel Foucault into her classes. I can still hear her Brooklyn accent talking about power structures, or, as she put it, power structures. So, what does an A-seeking student do when asked to write every week about Russian history? Channel Foucault, of course, and incorporate vague, abstract connections into your writing. And she ate it up. It was a running joke to see how much nonsense and fluff I could get away with and still receive full credit. I got an A in that class. And what did I learn? I couldn't tell you. Something about Russian culture being ambivalent towards authoritarianism. Or how about the class on meditation and relaxation? The professors didn't want to stress anyone out over their grades because that would be too ironic. So they ended up giving everybody an A. It didn't really matter if you showed up, though I did. But because you were practically guaranteed of getting an A from the start, students were literally permitted to fall asleep in class. They were certainly relaxed while they were unconscious. Or what about my English class, called Fiction into Film? Liberal arts education insists that you get a wide range of different classes, and it was the same story in each. Lazy, uninterested students being taught by dispassionate professors. In that class, we would read a book and then watch the corresponding film adaptation. Then naturally, as college students, we would write. Our assignments usually required us to create abstract interpretations of the material, and students were eager to write about all the sexual overtones and everything. Any whimsical interpretation went completely unchallenged, because after all, literary interpretation is subjective. If a student feels like Snow White is actually about sadomasochism, well, who's the professor to disagree? There was no critical thinking, nothing but regurgitating the plot line so that the professor knew we read the book. Then writing some fluffy nonsense about grandiose interpretations and personal feelings. And that exercise was supposed to strengthen my college education. As if creating some wild meta-narrative and writing down my feelings were an employable skill. Of course, I enjoyed reading many of these books. They were really good, but I don't need to pay tens of thousands of dollars to a university for good book recommendations. And if I didn't need a university to recommend books, I certainly didn't need them to teach me all of the deep insights from mandatory PE class. I spent thousands of dollars learning the rules of golf and then smacking some golf balls into a field 3 times a week. Not only did it cost thousands, but I got academic credit for it. As in, that work counted towards my illustrious bachelor's degree. Though it might sound silly, I was actually getting a bit discouraged to get these good grades with the amount of work that I was putting into college. It just seemed wrong. It only makes sense in one scenario. I must have been graded in relation to my peers. With only a handful of exceptions, every student was uninterested in learning. They were focused on socializing and partying. And Alfred has no reputation of being a party school, quite the opposite. While I was a lazy student, compared to my peers, I was a bookworm. No class contained more than a fraction of interested students, and professors had to teach to the middle. And of course, the middle, by any absolute metric, was scraping the bottom. My fellow students put a tiny amount of work into their educations, and yet many of them received respectable grades. I remember being perplexed by my professors telling me that I was a good writer. Then I read some of my peers' writing. It was abysmal, horrible, terrible, shockingly bad. Not just grammatically, but